Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim. We talk about horror movies, and in this episode we're actually going further back than I think we ever have. I think the oldest movie we've done before now was actually a long time ago. We did Psycho, and that's 1960. There's no particular reason why we haven't went further back than that. It's just not happened. We do a lot of new movies, of course, but
I can think of one reason.
what's the one reason?
Well, you millennials and your iPads and your...
Oh, God. Okay, now, Tim just referenced a joke that he made on a recent Tales from the Crypt review, and given that you may only watch the movie reviews, you may not get that joke. Secondly, I want to point out, like I did in that review, I am only about 3 years younger than Tim. Maybe 2.
All right.
I can't remember what age you are, Tim, but...
Whatever you say, Grandpa.
No, I'm young. I'm younger. You're older. You're the old man here.
So we review movies from the past and present. This is probably the most pastest movie.
I just said that, but in proper English. God damn it.
What movie did we watch?
Oh, that's a good question. We watched The Mummy. We watched the 1932 version of The Mummy. This is, in fact, not only is it the furthest back movie we've ever done so far on the show, it's also the first of the Universal classic monsters that we've tackled. And now, obviously...
I was just going to say, like, before we get into, our usual summary and how we feel about and stuff, just to maybe get, like, a little bit of context, do we want to give, like, brief... like thoughts and feelings about the Universal monster movies, like just to see so people know where we're coming from, if we're fans, if we don't like them, that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. I was just going to say, obviously we're doing this because a new Mummy movie's about to come out. Now that won't be a Screams review, that'll be a 1.21 review because it's not a horror movie, much like the 1999 version, which we actually just did on Influx a couple of weeks ago, so you can check out that if you want. I'll make sure there's a link in the corner. Yeah, that side.
Connor's corner.
Connor, yeah, it's Connor's corner. Yeah, if he's on the show, he's typically in that corner. That's a good point. But yeah, so I'll make sure it's linked to that. Yeah, Universal monster movies. I like them. I like them a lot. I don't like. I like most of the original movies. The sequels are kind of forgettable. Like I've just got a Blu-ray set now that's got all the original ones, and like Bride of Frankenstein's in there as well because it's like important as a sequel. But back on the DVD, I had like all the individual sets that had all the sequels that came with them, and Dracula came with Dracula's Daughter and House of Dracula and whatever other ones was. I can't remember them now.
They're all either house or son or daughter.
Yes.
Or
pretty much, and. They're all fine, but I don't really remember any of the sequels all that much. I remember the actors interchangeable. Like I remember, there's a Frankenstein. I think it's Son of Frankenstein, where Bela Lugosi plays the Frankenstein's monster, and that was very surreal for me. But
it's very incestuous back then. You're pretty much guaranteed either a Lugosi, a Chaney, or a Karloff in one of those movies.
Very much. So yeah, I like them all to varying degrees. My favourite is The Invisible Man, for the record.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
My favourite is The Invisible Man. And leading us on to this one, actually, honestly, my least favourite is probably The Mummy.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And obviously, I mean, that's how I kind of remembered. Everyone else had watched it before we watched it for this. And I remembered it being my least favorite. And I'm not including everything in that. Like the box sets typically come with the 1940 something version of Phantom of the Opera. I prefer the Mummy over that. Like that one's a bit weak. I don't think Mummy's bad by any means. I enjoy it, but it's definitely a lower tier for a couple of reasons that I'll get into.
Yeah, I'm basically coming from a pretty similar place. I'm actually a pretty big fan of these Universal monster movies. And I feel like if we do an older movie on here, I'm usually the one that maybe has more complaints about it being like outdated or something. But for whatever reason, like I love.
Who's the millennial now? Oh, it's in black and white. Oh, it's not filling up my TV screen. What are these bars?
Well, to be fair, I think if anyone was going to complain about aspect ratios, it'd probably be you.
I'd complain if it was incorrect, but it was shot. It was shot in 1.37 to 1. It is presented in 1.37 to 1, and I appreciate that. That is how I want to view it, how it was intended.
Well, who wouldn't? But
I'll tell you who wouldn't, Tim. These filthy bastards who press the zoom function on their TV. Oh, I don't want black bars. Zoom, or even worse than zoom, stretch. People who stretch. Oh.
there are people that like actually do that on purpose. Like,
there's a
I feel
special place in hell for them, Tim. Special
I feel like
place.
if you have the technical prowess to actually know how to do that on your TV, that you would probably be smart enough to appreciate the actual like way a movie should look. But
you'd like to think, but here we are.
But regardless, though, I really, really enjoy these movies. And I was actually in a similar boat. The Mummy was my least favorite, and that's why I wanted to rewatch this, because I had posted something on Facebook, kind of trying to gauge people's feel on the original Mummy. I actually got a lot of people back saying that it is either their favorite or that it was really good, and I hadn't really remembered it. So I actually got the Legacy Collection on Blu-ray, so I'm looking forward to watching through all of them. But when I did go back and watch this, I was surprised at how much I liked it. I still, like you, I wouldn't say it's my favorite. They're also good, but I'd probably give it up for Dracula if I was, pushed to it. But I actually like this a lot more than I remembered it.
Yeah, that's cool. I think for me, I think there's a couple of great moments in it, but I think partly for me the reason why it maybe sticks out as being a bit weaker than Dracula, Frankenstein, Invisible Man, Wolfman, is mainly because it feels like it borrows a lot of the same beats of Dracula.
Oh, yeah.
You've got the villain in this case, Imhotep, the mummy, wanting the woman who they, eventually in this movie they actually have her in a bedroom, and like there's like someone's gardening her, and like, oh, okay, this is basically Dracula again.
Yeah.
With him trying to get to her, and she's kind of hypnotized, and obviously it's a little bit different because in this she's actually the reincarnation of the his beloved from way back in ancient Egypt, but it feels very similar, even to the point where he even has like a servant, like he can control someone. So it honestly,
they're both kind of like romantic villains in a way. Like they have almost a power of seduction or something about them.
Yeah, and the funny thing is I wonder if people who like this one more than Dracula, like, did they see it first? Because I saw Dracula first. Yeah. And I wonder if it's whatever one you saw first, you see that as being the correct one, and then you see the other one as being the kind of, oh, this is kind of similar, still good, but
yeah. Also, I think a big detriment to it is I really like the way the mummy looks, but you really only see him like that for
the first scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and there is like a little bit of a creepiness, to him when he's Ardith Bay, as he's going by his like new modern name.
Yeah, he's got a secret identity basically, because we skip 10 years later after the opening scene, which sort of they wake him up by accident. As we get, he's got a fez on, and he's he's pretending to be this guy named Ardith Bay, as he slowly plots and tries to get his wife back. So
should we just go like full spoilers? I mean,
I think
the movie is
1932.
Yeah.
Do you know what's funny? I actually watched, because I've seen the 1999 movie way more, just because it's it came out when I was 10.
You're a total Frasier head.
Shut up. It came out when I was 10, so I seen that a lot when my early teens. It was kind of one of those movies that was on TV all the time, and I think I had it on DVD. Was the first
one the one that had the big like just tidal wave of sand with the mummy's face?
Yeah.
Okay. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
But it's funny going back and watching this one and seeing that they actually did take quite a lot of the ideas of the plot and like the name, like Imhotep, like,
yeah,
like.
And I also feel like that's the name. I could be wrong, but I feel like that's the name of a comic book character as well because it sounded so familiar.
Hmm.
And I know like there's some Egyptian characters like in Marvel, like around Apocalypse, and there's like a time traveling Fantastic Four villain that goes back to ancient Egypt, and for some reason I kept thinking that Imhotep was their name too, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, possibly. Even I mean, DC have got a bit of Egypt in there as well with Black Adam and the Hawk Man, Hawk Girl.
Oh, right,
yeah,
right, yeah.
all that stuff.
That's funny. Yeah, I was thinking about them a little bit when they were talking about like reincarnation and stuff in this movie.
Yeah, it's basically a Hawkman, Hawk Girl movie with more evil. Yeah. So no, actually, the opening scene is. I think it actually is a detriment, as you say. That the opening scene is actually one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Partly because it's really tense, like because they discover the body, the mummy's there, and they get the crate out that has the scroll in it, and the one guy's like, no, you can't open this. This is going to bring doom and gloom and everything, and don't do it. Proper warning. And it's when the two older guys are out, and one of them's Joseph Wemple, who's like one of our main characters, because his son comes in later on, because we skipped 10 years ahead, because this opening scene set in 1921, which is really funny watching a movie from the 30s, and it's like 10 years ago in 1921. It's like cut to present day. It's like, and now present day is like 80 years old. That is weird. But no, so but there's the one guy's left on his own, and he's like, oh, I'm tempted, and he opens the bottle and he looks, looks at the scroll and he starts reading. And one of my favorite things about this scene is that it's dead quiet, like there's no sound whatsoever, and you can just see the mummy in the background, like propped up in the sarcophagus, just with his hands up, and then you see his eyes open, but the whole time it's completely silent, and it's proper creepy, and it's just kind of a shame that the rest of the movie never really feels that creepy again.
Yeah, and I especially love that this like act from the mummy like drove this guy completely insane. Like that scene is pretty creepy, as you said, and then
good scream. The guy's scream when he sees him is pretty good.
Yeah, and then just his like demented laughter afterwards just makes you like kind of feel like, oh, wow, this this thing is crazy.
Yeah, and then you like the final shot of the scene is you see like the bandages like scraping out the door, like as if the mummy's just walked through, and I was like, oh man, yeah. And I think it really sets you up for he's going to be a mummy, he's going to be up to things, and then next time you see him he's in a fez and he's introducing himself as Ardith Bay.
Ardith Bay, that common name that people always go by.
You need to be inconspicuous. I shall call myself Ardith Bay.
What was the most common name from when I was alive? Oh, yes.
Hey, to be fair, for all we know in Egypt and Cairo, maybe Ardith is...
That's true. Yeah, I will. I'll cop to that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's a common name in Egypt.
Yeah.
Could be. Oh, dear. So, yeah, so then the plot kind of becomes that he basically Joseph's son Frank is now also an archaeologist, and he's in Egypt in 1932, present day, for the movie. And Ardith comes in and is like, "Oh, I found this thing. Maybe the dig site's over there." Basically, he's basically just tricking them into digging up his dead girlfriend, so that he can do his rituals and stuff once they get her body out. And that's what he tries to do. And it sort of, when he does his little incantation in the museum, it triggers. Not the memories quite, but just like the woman who's like the reincarnated version of her, who's what's her name, Helen. That's when we're introduced to her, which is actually a really smart thing from an editing point of view and structure. Is that we see him do this little incantation, and then the first time we see Helen is right after this. It cuts to her, so it follows on nicely in terms of structure, which is quite nice.
And I enjoyed her. I thought she was a pretty charming female lead in this, and she did a good job of like really playing up when she was in the mummy's thrall. Like she just kind of had like this vacant look about her.
Yeah, she basically on this night she goes into a trance and she goes to the museum and she doesn't know she's doing this. She's kind of like zombified doing it, and basically the archaeologists Frank and Joseph like find her, take her back to their house. they contact her doctor, who's another one of the main characters, Dr. Mueller, and bring him in, and she can't remember why she was there, what she was doing, and then we're introduced to one of the quickest love stories in the history of the human race.
Yeah.
And
if
to be
there's
fair,
anything,
movies from the 30s and 40s are pretty guilty of this on a whole. You know, characters who meet and then like 10 minutes later is, oh, I love you, I want to marry you, right? They're all guilty of it, but this one seems especially quick.
Oh yeah, I kept thinking of how like different this would play in a modern movie. Like, and here it's played up to be romantic, but nowadays it just seems so creepy. Just this dude staring at this girl while she's sleeping. Like, she just wakes up and he's like spouting out all this stuff, like, like, oh, I'm not gonna leave you, and I want to stay here by your side, and like, oh, it's a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, a little bit on the creepy side. But you're kind of used to it watching these old movies. It's just in this one, it's especially quick. They're kissing by the end of the scene. It's really strange. Like she's woken. She's not even stood up. She's still sitting on the couch where she woke up after her trance. And by the end of the scene, and he becomes like a threat for Imhotep, because Imhotep's like, oh no, love creeps into your heart for another. This must be dealt with, kind of thing.
It's your classic love triangle. On the one hand, you got the ancient, recently risen from the grave mummy, and then you got the weirdo creep who carried you to his house after you passed out and won't leave you alone.
Exactly.
How does a girl choose?
How indeed? I don't know. I don't know how girls pick boys. It's baffling to me. If I knew the secret to that, I mean, I'd be like a pimp.
Well, maybe someday you'll find an ancient scroll that will
maybe
help you out.
Maybe. Oh dear. So yeah, he puts her into a trance again, like the next day or whatever, and she comes over to like his hideout, and he's got this magic pool, and he's like, I'm going to show you the history of what happened, our romance, and we look into the pool and we get like a flashback.
And I think the first time we got like this pool view, because we might have had a scene before it where like the mummy was watching something through it, but at first I didn't realize.
It's basically his, like, remember in the command center in Power Rangers, they've got the orb where they can watch stuff. That's basically what this little pool is that he's got, and he's watching. He's watching like the various. He's watching the archaeologist. He's watching her, and because he's looking for the scroll, because the archaeologist has got his scroll, because he had to flee the scene, because he killed a security guard, of course. Yeah. So everyone's on edge. And
but then the first time they did it though, I don't know if I missed him like looking into the pool or something, but I had like no idea what was going on. Like I was like, wait, are they like watching TV? Because it has like this weird border around it, like to represent it's through the pool. And I was like, wait, does he have mummy vision or something? But then they cut back to him looking into it. I was like, oh, okay. But it was a weird effect at first.
I'd be highly surprised if there was TVs in Cairo in 1932.
That's why I was like, what is going on?
I mean, I think TVs were invented by then, sure, but they weren't super commonplace. But that, I mean, to put it in perspective, like the archaeologists look quite rich, and they don't seem to have a TV in their house. So
yeah,
which is actually one of the weird signifiers of all these old stories is that the main characters always seem to be really rich.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that's maybe it was just a fantasy thing about writing back at, because obviously I'm not sure if The Mummy is, but a lot of these movies are obviously based on books. And I don't know if maybe part of the fantasy of writing is that your main characters they're always the well-off upper class, and because that's what we all aspire to be, kind of thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say it might be like a little more aspirational as opposed to stuff nowadays, which is relatable.
Yeah, wish fulfillment and that kind of thing. Either that, or maybe it was just, or maybe it was kind of the almost more extreme version of whitewashing back in the day, where all the main characters had to be the well-off upper class because that's what sold tickets, and they wouldn't let poor people be the main characters, kind of thing. Like maybe that was the attitude back then. I have no idea. It'd be interesting to find out. Maybe there's some good movie books written on it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so actually I had some problems with this flashback. This flashback went on forever.
Yeah.
And obviously some of it was vital information, but some of it felt like it was just like going through the motion. Like you could have went through the bullet points of this flashback like really quickly, and it lasted a good over 5 minutes at least.
Yeah, I feel like we just need to see that who they were in their past life, but instead it feels like it was going like almost going through like, oh, like here's what a day in like Egypt is like. It's like, all right, well, we're already sold on the premise that these are reincarnated people.
Part of it is kind of like, again, a sign of the times, and pacing was slower, and that's fine. But the actual information being presented in the flashback, other than a couple of key points, most of it was stuff we already kind of knew.
Yeah.
And as a result, it just kind of feels like it's dragging on it. Because obviously, compare it to the 1999 one, which I'm not saying is better, but obviously the way it handled the flashback is that it started with that. It was a prologue scene where you got the history of like how they were and how they came to be, kind of thing. And here it happens like 2/3 into the movie, or almost 2/3 into the movie. Which is weird because that's when Act 2 is supposed to be kind of wrapping up and things are supposed to be getting higher stakes, barreling into the third act, and instead we have this flashback. And what was interesting as well is the flashback had no sound, music. It was just music playing over it, and occasionally there's a little bit of narration, but it did make it feel a little bit disconnected to an extent.
Yeah. Also, there was like a dude with like I don't know if he was supposed to be bald, if he was wearing like a bald cap, or if that was some type of Egyptian thing.
I joked about that. I'm actually shocked you thought it was actually a bald cap, because it's just a headdress that happens to look like a really bad ball cap.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. They weren't trying to pass that off as actual a bald person. That was a hat.
Okay, I was hoping so, because it didn't look like something that I'd like seen before. That granted, obviously I'm not master of Egyptian archaeology or anything, but those like kind of like headdresses that the pharaohs wear, or something you can kind of picture in your head, like stuff like that. I have familiarity with. Like I'd never really seen a bald cap looking thing like that, so I wasn't sure if are they trying to make him look bald or something.
Admittedly, I think when I've seen those types of headdresses, otherwise they've been a bit more detailed and they've had like a design on them. But I've definitely seen that shape, that kind of hat.
Yeah,
hat's not the right word.
What would we say? Yeah,
it doesn't even feel like a hat, but. Yeah, I've definitely seen things like that in ancient Egypt sort of depictions before, just maybe a bit more detailed, maybe with like a design on it or something like that.
All right.
So yeah, it was one of those big flashback, and then from there, that's where we get to the real Dracula feeling sort of stuff, where it's like her in the bedroom, she's not meant to leave, she feels she's trapped. But she gets out, of course, anyway, and obviously with these old movies, these old Universal Monster movies, they're only about 75 minutes long. So at this point, we're already 10 minutes away from the end. We're getting right there. She goes to the museum, and Imhotep's all, well, I'm going to kill you so I can bring you back as a mummy like me, and we can be immortal together forever. But
so, can't we just be together like now?
But she's all conflicted because she actually, as much as she's starting to feel like she can remember her old self, she actually does have a new life, and she likes her new life. She likes who she is now, and she does have feelings for old Frank. So again, I mean, she met him like yesterday, but she has feelings for old Frank, and yeah, so that, and the doctor and Frank come rushing in, and they don't actually save her. She saves herself. She basically decides herself to just.
She prays to a statue of, I think it was Isis.
Yeah, and the arm comes out and it deals with them, and she saves herself. If I have a little complaint, actually, is I think the movie ends really abruptly.
Oh, sure.
Like even just from an editing point of view, because it basically she falls down, and Frank comes in, he's like, oh, remember who you are, wake up, remember who you are, Helen. And she does wake up. We see the statue again, and the camera tilts down, and we see like the skeleton of like the mummy. But the skeleton, like as soon as we actually land in the skeleton in the shot, it already starts to fade out. You barely get a chance to see it, and then the music completely changes as it comes up saying the end. I'm like, oh, that was abrupt. Like, did they have like 10 more seconds? But they were told, no. You have 10 seconds over. Chop off 10 seconds at the end. Were they told that? Because it felt very abrupt.
Yeah.
I'm being nitpicky, of course. Obviously,
I think it is a little weird when you see it. Yeah.
yeah. Obviously, we talked about how the great opening scene, the look at the mummy. Boris Karloff is very good. They love that close-up shot of just his face.
Yeah.
And it is effective because he looks evil. He looks evil as shit.
Yeah.
Like
I would have appreciated seeing him as the mummy more, but I did like that at least he was kind of a creepy dude, like in his own right. So like, yeah, you get those like weird close-up shots, and his eyes look a little weird, and I don't know if it's makeup or if he's just really wrinkly or something, but his like skin is all.
Joe, the funny thing about it is we said, oh, it's a bit too much like Dracula, and part of that is that he presents himself as this other person who's like a reasonable man who comes in and pretends to be a friend and tries to make nice like that. And I almost wonder, had you kept him looking like a mummy, and he's more of a thing that creeps in and he tries to go unseen, some stuff would have still been like Dracula, but it would have felt maybe made it feel a bit more different.
Yeah.
And it would have meant we could have had him be more like the mummy rather than be fez wearing Dracula for some of the movie. And so, not that I'm trying to suggest ways they can improve a 1932 movie, because like it's kind of cemented what it is at this point. We don't have to. But it was just, I think that's why for me it is maybe the weakest out of the original biggies, as it were. Why for me it's the weakest one, because it does feel it's kind of like Dracula. There's a couple of things that quite don't work, and it's a shame because there's a lot of really good things about it as well. But
yeah. And I haven't really dug into the sequels yet, but I'm excited to, because I was talking to some people about it that were fans, and kind of what I gathered from what they were telling me is that the sequels do get more into a monster vibe with it. And then I forget which one it is, but someone was telling me that there's one that even has kind of like a proto slasher vibe to it that's supposed to be really good. So
interesting.
Yeah, check that out.
That's cool. That was the other thing as well. The Doctor character, again, compared it to Dracula, felt very Van Helsing. Like,
yeah.
Specifically Van Helsing from the Dracula movie from 1931. Not necessarily always like every version of Van Helsing, but
not Hugh Jackman Van Helsing.
Not Hugh Jackman Van Helsing. No. But that's kind of where I stand. There's some effective moments. Obviously, the constant close-ups of Karloff's face, creepy. That opening scene is very creepy, very well done. Almost to a fault, because it makes you kind of, like, the rest of the movie feels kind of like, oh, I kind of wish we got more of that, because that was really good. But no, obviously it stood the test of time for a reason. It's got a reputation, and how many movies have been based on it? Lots.
Right.
We're about to get another one, so.
Not just movies too. I mean, there are like Castlevania bosses that are mummies, which we wouldn't have gotten without this.
Possibly. Well, this didn't invent the mummy, though, did it?
Well, no, I didn't invent the mummy, but I don't think there would have been a cultural significance of the mummy as a monster.
That's fair.
Without it, it probably would have just been a very respected tradition that people did not fear.
I think that's fair. So, I guess we get on to ratings. If you're good to go with that, so
I'm good.
All right, what's your rating? out of 10 is the number we use.
So, like we mentioned, I do like it, but it still doesn't really touch the upper echelon of the other Universal monsters. But it doesn't mean it's bad. It's not good. It's effective and it's quick. So it can be a little slow, but like you said, it's like an hour and 10 minutes. So I'm gonna give it a 7.5.
All right, interesting. I'm gonna go just a smidge lower and go with a 7. I do think it's good. I do think the opening scene sets you up for a lot of really cool stuff, and then it doesn't kind of deliver on that. It then becomes kind of a weird rehash of Dracula. But Karloff's great. Some of the imagery is really cool. As much as I said the flashbacks went on too long, it was kind of cool seeing like how they filmed what ancient Egypt
Oh,
was in 1932 compared to, like, you know, like a modern movie where you've got all the CGI and you've got all this fancy effects and stuff. So no, I do recommend going back and checking it out. I would recommend a lot of the other Universal Monster movies first, but
Definitely.
and I'm sure we'll get to them at some point. You know, when they make a new Frankenstein, then a new Jekyll and Hyde, and a new so on, we'll dive into more of them.
Hopefully, if this Dark Universe thing pans out,
Hopefully, we'll see if this Mummy movie bombs first, because it could.
I mean, admittedly, I hate to be cynical, but I'm gonna assume these movies might kind of suck. Like, I'm pretty excited to see the Mummy, but I'm not really holding out hope. But
well, here's the thing.
I want to see them though.
Almost every planned shared universe post MCU has kind of just died on arrival.
Yeah.
That King Arthur movie that just came out, that was supposed to be the first of 6. Good luck with that.
It's such a weird number. I don't know why people are obsessed with like 6 movies.
I don't know. Harry Potter, I think, made everyone want. You know, I'm more than 5. Everyone wants more than 5 movies now because of Harry Potter.
Yeah. Is that the new thing now? It's like 6 movies and a TV show instead of.
I would like a Community movie. That'd be lovely.
Yeah.
But here we are. So that was the Mummy. I think from other Universal Monsters, we'll probably tackle them when they get new movies. That said, though, a couple of Dracula might be the exception, partly because there's no Dracula movie on the cards right now, which is weird. They've got this Dark Universe thing starting up, but there's no Dracula planned. But also because, like, it makes sense to, like, just have a Dracula themed month at some point and do a bunch of Dracula movies and do, like, 1931, do the Hammer Dracula, do this.
Maybe that could be a good one of our upcoming polls on the Patreon page. We have
the vote, yes.
List of different Draculas.
Yeah, and we haven't already decided what the next vote's going to be, but we're not ready to reveal it. In fact, it won't be the next episode, but the episode after the next one is when we'll announce the winner for June, because obviously people have been voting throughout May for the bonus episode in June, and we'll be announcing that in 2 episodes' time, and then the episode will come sometime mid-June.
Yeah, unless you want to know right away, just message me and I'll hook you up.
If you want Tim fired, you can try it. But you can also, of course, join up to the Patreon and vote in June for July's bonus episode. And we already
That's
know,
a better way to do it.
Yeah, and we already know what that vote is, but we will not reveal that until we've got a winner for the past one. So, that Tim just neatly put us into the Patreon plug. So if you want to support us, head over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. But you can also just support us by liking, subscribing, commenting and letting us know what you thought of the movie and all that kind of stuff. All of it helps. But that is us. So thank you very much for watching. We will see you next time. Keep watching scary movies.